Hello, and welcome to this week's Bible study. And for this week, we're going to get a little bit of background on the first reading. The first reading for this week is from the 21st chapter of Genesis, and it's about the weaning of Isaac. So, a little bit of background on Isaac and Ishmael seem to be in order. So, in order to really get a full sense of what's going on, we need to go back to Genesis 12. Now the Lord said to Abram, right? Go from your country and your kindred and your father's house, the land that I will show you. I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and the one who curses you I will curse. And in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. So this is the promise that God makes to at this point, Avram. We have just had the Tower of Babel, right? Genesis 1 through 11 is the prehistory. And God just picks this guy, Abram. Go from your country and your kindred to your father and your father's house, the land that I will show you. Abram is one of the patriarchs.
There you go.
Yeah, Abram is one of the patriarchs. God makes a promise to Abraham, and we pick up then with Abraham's story. It starts in Genesis 15. And I do actually recommend that you read Genesis 12, Genesis 15, 16, 17, and 18. So really Genesis 12 and then Genesis 15 through 18. But for now, we're going to focus in just a couple of places. Genesis 15. After these things, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision. Do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield. Your reward shall be very great. But Abram said, O Lord God, what will you give me? For I continue childless. And the heir of my house is Eliezer of Damascus. And Abram said, You have given me no offspring, and so a slave born in my house is to be my heir. But the word of the Lord came to him, This man shall not be your heir. No one but your very own issue shall be your heir. He brought him outside and said, Look toward heaven and count the stars, if you are able to count them. Then he said to him, So shall your descendants be. And he believed the Lord, and the Lord reckoned it to him as righteousness. Right, lots of stars in the sky. That's how many descendants Abram will have. As the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell upon Abram, and a deep and terrifying darkness descended upon him. Then the Lord said to Abram, Know this for certain, that your offspring shall be aliens in a land that is not theirs, and shall be slaves there, and they shall be oppressed for 400 years. But I will bring judgment on the nation that they shall serve, and afterward they shall come out with great possessions. Right. So we got the promise to Abraham first, right? That he will have God will make of him a great nation, will bless you. And here we get the promise from God to Abram that he will be the father. He will have lots and lots of descendants, an uncountable number of descendants. And we get this. I cut out a couple of the verses there, but then we get this interesting thing about, yes, you'll have lots of descendants, and for 400 years they will be slaves in a country you've never heard of, although actually he will. He'll wander in and out of Egypt, but he doesn't name Egypt. God does not name Egypt in verses 12 through 14. They will be slaves there, however, and then I will bring judgment on the nation where they were slaves. Now, what is Abraham's wife's name? Well, we know her as Sarah, but just as we know of Abraham's Abraham, now Sarai, Abram's wife, bore him no children. She had an Egyptian slave girl whose name was Hagar. And Sarai said to Abram, You see that the Lord has prevented me from bearing children. Go into my slave girl, so it may be that I shall obtain children by her. And Abram listened to the voice of Sarai. So Abraham had lived 10 years in the land of Canaan. Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar the Egyptian, her slave girl, and gave her to her husband Abram as a wife. He went into Hagar, and she conceived. And the angel of the Lord said to Hagar, "Now you have conceived and shall bear a son. You shall call him Ishmael, for the Lord has given heed to your affliction." Hagar bore Abram a son, and Abram named his son, whom Hagar bore, Ishmael. Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bore him Ishmael. 86 years old, having a kid. No. That's all I gotta say about that. It's fine for him, fine for them, I guess. Just sounds exhausting to me. God gives Ishmael his name, and Ishmael means God hears, I believe. God has heard of your affliction. So Ishmael is the son of Hagar and Abram. Hagar was Sarai's handmaid. So, when Abram was 99 years old, this is now 13 years later, the Lord appeared to Abram and said to him, "I am God Almighty, walk before me and be blameless. And I will make my covenant," this is the first time we see that language, "between me and you, and will make you exceedingly numerous." Then Abram fell on his face, and God said to him, "As for me, this is my covenant with you. You shall be the ancestor of a multitude of nations. No longer shall your name be Abram, but your name shall be Abraham. Father of a multitude is Abraham. For I have made you the ancestor of a multitude of nations. I will make you exceedingly fruitful, and I will make nations of you, and kings shall come from you. I will establish my covenant between me and you and your offspring after you throughout their generations, for an everlasting covenant, to be God to you and to your offspring after you. And I will give to you and to your offspring after you the land where you are now an alien, all the land of Canaan, for perpetual holding. And I will be their God." So there was a covenant with Noah, right? But this is a different, more specific kind of covenant. God gives Abram a new name. His name's now Abraham. Sarai, right? God renames Sarah. Oh, I didn't read the second part. Sorry. Let's go back and read that second part then, shall we? God said to Abraham, "As for Sarai your wife, you shall not call her Sarai, but Sarah shall be her name. I will bless her, and moreover I will give you a son by her. I will bless her, and she shall give rise to nations. Kings of people shall come from her." Then Abraham fell on his face and laughed, and said to himself, "Can a child be born to a man who is 100 years old? Can Sarah, who is 90 years old, bear a child?" Abraham fell on his face and laughed, and said to himself. And Abraham said to God, "Oh, that Ishmael might live in your sight." God said, "No, but your wife Sarah shall bear you a son, and you shall name him Isaac." Isaac has the same root word as laugh. "I will establish my covenant with him as an everlasting covenant for his offspring after him." But I haven't forgotten about Ishmael. Check this out. "As for Ishmael, I have heard you. I will bless him and make him fruitful and exceedingly numerous. He shall be the father of 12 princes, and I will make him a great nation. But my covenant I will establish with Isaac, whom Sarah shall bear to you at this season next year." And when he had finished talking with him, God went up from Abraham. Abraham's got a kid, 13 years old at this point. Kid's name is Ishmael. God says, "No, kid's going to come, your descendant, your heir, shall come from Sarah, and you will name him Isaac." Okay, that's great. Yes, that's great. "And you shall name him Isaac." Remember that. We're now in Genesis 18. The Lord appeared to Abraham by the oaks of Mamre as he sat at the entrance of his tent in the heat of the day. He looked up and saw 3 men standing near him. When he saw them, he ran from the tent entrance to meet them and bowed down to the ground. He said, "My lord, if I find favor with you, do not pass by your servant. Let a little water be brought, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree. Let me bring a little bread, that you may refresh yourselves, and after that you may pass on, since you have come to your servant." So they said, "Do as you have said." And Abraham hastened to the tent to Sarah, and said, "Make ready quickly 3 measures of choice flour, knead it, and make cakes." Get this, Abraham ran to the herd, took a calf, tender and good, and gave it to the servant, who hastened to prepare it. Then he took curds and milk, and the calf that he had prepared, and set it before them. And he stood by them under the tree while they ate. I want to stop and pause there for a minute. Now remember, this is a Bedouin sort of desert culture. Hospitality is a big deal for them. But Abraham hastened. He ran here and he ran there, and had a calf slaughtered, and then cooked it, and then put it before them. I don't think any of this was fast, at least not in the way we conceive of fast, right? I put a Hot Pocket in the microwave, and 2 minutes later I've got my lunch. That's fast. This is not fast. But different culture, different time, different place, different concept of slow and fast, I guess. Back to the text. The visitors said to him, "Where is your wife Sarah?" And he said, "There, in the tent." Then one said, I will surely return to you in due season, and your wife Sarah shall have a son." And Sarah was listening at the tent entrance behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old, advanced in age. It had ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of women. So Sarah laughed to herself, saying, "After I have grown old, and my husband is old, shall I have pleasure?" The Lord said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh and say, 'Shall I indeed bear a child now that I am old?' Is anything too wonderful for the Lord? At the set time I will return to you in due season, and Sarah shall have a son." But Sarah denied, saying, "I did not laugh," for she was afraid. He said, "Oh yes, you did laugh." The visitors sort of morph into God, and they are depicted sometimes as the Trinity, the 3 visitors, depicted sometimes, at least in Christian iconography, as the Trinity. We have another reason then why Isaac might be named Laugh, why their kid might be named Isaac Laugh. And this sort of sets up the scene then for Sunday's first reading, where you've got Isaac and Ishmael. Ishmael is considerably older than Isaac, at least when you're, 2, 3, 5 years old, whatever. Whatever Isaac would have been when he was weaned. This sort of sets up the scene, and there's going to be sort of a rivalry. And if you go back and read from Genesis 16, that rivalry's already started to build. All right, that concludes our Bible study for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you join us next week.